Have you told yourself your own story? Welcome to my live tonight. My name is Marissa Price. I am a Black woman social worker, healer, and today's topic is how to heal from childhood trauma by knowing your origin story. And this is for Black women healing from trauma, from childhood trauma, trauma in adulthood, because a lot of the roots in what we're experiencing in adulthood can be found in childhood. So, yes, this is the topic of discussion for tonight. I see Latrice in the chat. Hey, Latrice. Hey, Marissa Price. I'm here for the live, here for the community. Oh, thank you. Excited for this discussion. Black Girl Magic Lawyer. Yes, I love your hashtag. Yes, yes. And please, if y'all are watching, as you're coming in, please let us know in the chat so we can say hello. But yes, Latrice has a live coming up tomorrow afternoon. Let me check what time on my calendar. With the professor, one of the professors who developed the model that we see, the Black woman employee life cycle, which I'm like, how were you in my mind developing this? Because it was so real. Let me see what time that's at. On Thursday. Okay. Yes. The 15th. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. So y'all please subscribe to Latrice's channel. Let me see if I can put the link in the chat so y'all can subscribe. Black Girl Magic. And I think Latrice, let me know if your handle on YouTube is Black Girl Magic Lawyer. Because I'm going to link your channel in the chat. Okay. If not, I'll change it. But yes, y'all, please subscribe to Latrice's channel. Like I said, she is going to be hosting a discussion tomorrow with Dr. Jen Wells, or the 15th, Thursday. I keep thinking today's Wednesday. Thursday with Dr. Jen Wells, who helped create that model, the Black woman employee life cycle model. Okay. Thank you for confirming. Yes. Yes, this is Latrice's channel, so please subscribe, y'all. But yes, the topic of tonight's discussion, how to heal from childhood trauma by knowing your origin story. So the question I asked when we started, do you know your own story? Have you told yourself your own story? And this is something that I've been sitting with as I have been healing and kind of recognizing the different wounds that I have. It's really like telling myself my own story. Because a lot of the times we are in survival mode day to day, and especially in such a work-centric place as the US, which a lot of us are from, where work is just like the center of our lives. And we're expected to just be like workers, robots, which I'm going to talk about too. And we don't really have a chance to reflect on how we got to the place where we're at now and all the memories that we've accumulated along the way, all the experiences that have really led us to this point and what we're experiencing in the current moment. And as I've just been reflecting on like toxic job experiences, which I talk about on my channel a lot of those, the reasons why we feel like we have to stay, a lot of those are rooted in what we experienced in childhood. People in work can kind of trigger these deeper wounds that we have. And if we're not aware of those wounds, it can feel like we're right back in childhood, which is what I experienced. So bringing your awareness to that, shout out to Glam Mazzini, who says like the first step to healing is being aware of your wounds. Because a lot of us are not. A lot of us are just walking around wounded, right? Without the awareness, because again, we were not taught to become aware of this. We don't have the time a lot in such a fast-paced society where everything is very like go, go, go. Being able to stop and recognize like where you're wounded is so pivotal to begin healing. That's really the first step. So bringing your awareness to that. Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. I'm excited. I'm so excited. Yes, the Black woman employee life cycle model, that kind of ties in, right? Because we see Black women being brought in, just like going through that model. I'm like, when I tell you that every step was exactly what I experienced, and I know that's the case for a lot of us. So to hear from Dr. Jen Wells on Thursday on Latrice's channel, I'm excited. I'm excited for that. Hey, Leslie, welcome. Good to see you. I'm so sorry. Kagayaku Angel. Hi. Hi, welcome, welcome. And if I'm mispronouncing your name, please just let me know. Yes, yeah. I just realized that my dad used to talk over me and shut me down. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's real. And just sharing like my experience in the workplace. that I left having someone like the manager, right? Someone that I was reporting to talk over me in meetings. That sent me right back to what I experienced in childhood. And it's only through the process of having time and space to now reflect on what I experienced, I can now like connect those dots, which is one of the ways that this is very powerful. When you tell yourself your own story, when you comb back through the things that you've experienced in childhood all throughout your life, you can begin to connect the dots. How did you get here? Right? Why did you feel like you had to stay? What was familiar? Because again, as children, we cannot leave these environments. So that becomes deeply embedded into our psyches that we can't leave, even though we're being harmed, even though we have the agency as adults now, right? If you are still operating in the mode when you were 8 years old, where you couldn't leave that environment, you're going to feel like you're stuck in this toxic work environment too, even though you have the agency to leave. So just being aware of that is huge. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Latrice says Black people are trained to tolerate abuse. Yeah. Yeah. That's absolutely true. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Leslie said, yes, it makes it easy to see the connections if we take the time to sift through it. But that crapola is hard to do, Leslie. Yes, it is. It's so difficult, right? It's painful because you have to revisit really deeply traumatic experiences throughout childhood. And that's why it requires time and patience, which again, the society does not afford us. Where are we going to have time to do this when we are like busy working ourselves, like grinding all the time, which is the messaging that we receive? When do we have the time to really sit and reflect on what happened to us? And I think that's by design, right? The more that I've been reflecting on this, there's a reason why we don't have time to sit and think and reflect. Because then when we start connecting the dots, we realize, oh my gosh, I experienced that like I have, right? Back in school. When I first started, the school experiences that I had, right? Being able to connect those dots. Well, how is this institution that I'm in mirroring the education system in the US very closely? And that's where you start to make change and come to like a higher understanding, a higher frequency of operating. And all of these systems are really designed to keep us very low, right? To keep us like thinking down here, when really like when you zoom out and you're able to connect the dots, you're able to make those realizations that change your life. Yeah. 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 Absolutely. They don't want us to connect the dots. No. No. Absolutely not. Yeah. Thank y'all so much. Yeah. Hey, Rabia. 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 Yes. Hello and welcome. Yeah. Designed to oppress us. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And there's a term, right, that I've come across recently, adult supremacy. It's really the way that children are disregarded completely in this society, as if what they say has no merit, right? Why are we listening to children? Like what they do is silly and just writing it off, when really they are the ones that are the most like themselves, because they have not taken on the layers that we have as adults that have told us how to act, how to operate, how to make ourselves into robots. They are really like the truest versions of themselves. And so if you're prioritizing adults in a society, you're missing out on like all of that knowledge that they're able to receive, right, directly from source. So that is another way that oppression works, right? That's very true. Okay, thank you. Yes, I remembered. I remember. Good to see you. Good to see you. Leslie says, see, that's why I need BTS, because I got to be happy all the time. That is so hilarious. Thank you. Yes, yes. Yeah. Adults are the freaking worst. I'm daily apologizing to my daughter now. Yeah. 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 And it's like the more you reflect, you realize, oh, these things that I believe about myself, that I've internalized about myself, These are things that someone like an adult actually said to me at a very young age when my brain was still developing, right? In those very formative years, because the majority of our brain development occurs before the age of 9. So if we are in environments where adults are, telling us these things about ourselves that we don't believe ourselves, but we've taken them on, that can do a lot of damage if you're in adulthood and you still have those messages inside you. So one of the ways to heal is really to change your inner voice, really to be aware of your inner monologue. Like, what are you telling yourself on a day-to-day basis? I think even writing that out, right, in a journal, voice noting, when those messages come up. Am I telling myself that I'm like worthless and that I'm like, I should know this already? Like, what are the actual messages that are floating around inside your head? Writing those out so that you can start to see, oh my gosh, I'm really mean to myself. And knowing that we don't come to earth being mean to ourselves. So that means that's someone else's voice that we've internalized, that we're now telling ourselves this. And it's trapping us in the same pattern. And we're not able to get out of that, right? With that internal monologue. But you have the power to change your monologue, right? Those thoughts that are inside our heads, the things that we're telling ourselves, we have the power to change that voice, to make it one that is compassionate, right? That's humorous. That's the voice that I've adopted. One that's really like, girl, are you really? Okay, we doing that again. That has helped me really start to heal, right? Changing that, becoming aware. Again, that's the first step of healing. Shout out to Glenn Mazzini. And then really with the awareness, how are you going to change it going forward? Leaning into your power, knowing that you have the ability to do that. You don't just have to walk around with an inner monologue that's like highly critical. You don't have to do that. You have the power to change that. And that's one of the ways to start healing from childhood trauma. Recognizing what your inner monologue is telling you. Yeah, Latrice says, stay out of grown folks' business was a staple in my house. Oh, no. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, like completely writing off children, what they're saying, what they're feeling. And so like the effect that has as a child, you start to like doubt, well, maybe I just should just, silence what I'm saying. No one wants to hear it. And so how are we still holding on to those messages as adults? Right? Not speaking up when we see something that is clearly wrong. And then we get into environments where our voices are again silenced. So that kind of puts us back into that same pattern of being traumatized as a child. Yeah. Hope and victory. Hey. Yes, adults are not better than the mean kids. They continue to bully, i.e. in work environments. Absolutely. Yes. That's so true. That's so true. Yeah. That is real. Yes, we have the power to change. We do. We do. Yeah. And that's one of the ways to start healing, right? Is to lean into your agency. Recognize that you have agency. Though you are healing from childhood trauma, you experience these very traumatic events during childhood. You, as an adult, now have the ability to reparent yourself, to protect yourself, to develop an inner monologue that is different from the one you grew up with, right? To just completely change like everything that's going on inside. But awareness is the first step because you have to be aware, where did this come from? Where did this wound originate? Right? So that's very, very important to healing. Yes. Yeah. So have you told yourself your own story? Where do you come from? Who do you come from? What traumatic experiences did you survive? Because you survived them. Any traumatic experience that you had, you have survived because you're here. And that deserves to be celebrated. That deserves to be celebrated. What messages did you receive growing up? How are these things impacting you in adulthood? Right? So these are just questions to ask yourself, to sit with. Right? How are these things showing up in adulthood? If you are experiencing workplace bullying and feel like you can't leave, did you experience this in childhood? Because that was the case for me, right? And recognizing, connecting the dots between those, because then you can begin to take action and realize that, no, you're an adult now. You're an adult. And that's one of the things I'm going to talk about too, like this, the construct of childhood and adulthood, right? These are made up, these are terms. And it's like adulthood begins at 18, this arbitrary number that we're given. It's like you're just supposed to be a grown at 18 and just completely forget, put away everything that you experienced before that point and just like be this new person at 18. That's not how that works. Because as I said, the majority of your brain development occurs before 9. So we are walking around with more than half of our brain development in that stage. How are we going to cut off everything that we experienced before 18? That has determined, informed a lot of our personalities, a lot of the ways that we move through the world. So we can't just cut off everything that we experienced before 18, right? So yes, so shout out to Rashida on her channel that I was interviewed on a couple weeks ago at this point about Black girl depression. She said the term roboticizing, and I've been sitting with that for the past 2 weeks, right? We are roboticized. As people, as earthlings on this planet, we are socialized to become more like robots the older that we get. We come here being human, right? With all of these things that we're gifted with, these talents, these skills that we have naturally. And then slowly over time, especially in the US education system, right? We are taught to comply. We're taught to shrink ourselves, to become robots. Really, I think that's the perfect term, roboticizing. So how can we like heal from that, right? And come back into ourselves? I think our childhood selves is really the key to that, coming back to who we were. So yes, take a sip of water. So yeah, shout out to the inspirations for this this live and thoughts that I've been sitting with. Angela Kanu, who talks a lot about life story work. I co-hosted a workshop with her on healing from childhood attachment wounds earlier this year. Glamazini, of course, for her work on identity and understanding who you were before you were put on the conveyor belt, as her visual that she uses. The conveyor belt where we're supposed to achieve this by this, X by Y, this life milestone by this age, right? It's just a constant conveyor belt that we're on. And it's only by tapping into your agency and realizing that you can hop off that conveyor belt. Just because you were put on it doesn't mean that you can't hop off of it, because that's not necessarily what you want, right? So shout out to Glenn Mazzini, Coach Yolanda, for her work in really inspiring me to revisit my birth story, which I've been talking about on my Substack blog, which I will link here if you're not subscribed. Just understanding how I entered into this world, the environment that I entered into, how that has shaped my personality, my being, the things that I value, tolerate as an adult, really visiting like, what is your birth story? How did you come to Earth? What did you enter into? What were your caregivers like? This is pertinent information as we begin healing, because again, a lot of the trauma that we experience in adulthood can be linked right back to our earliest years, the things that we experienced early on, right? When we could not leave. We couldn't leave these environments often. So it's really tapping into that and letting yourself go back to those places, which can be extremely difficult. And that's where like therapy may come in handy if you need help processing some of this, because some of the things that we experience in childhood are very deeply traumatic, right? It can be triggering, revisiting them. So therapy can be very essential in this process. Yeah. Survivors. Yes. Yeah. Rabia says, I got a call and felt like I did in childhood. I had to be reminded in therapy that I'm an adult and I'm safer now. Ooh, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that was one of the things about therapy when I was in therapy, right? Having her reflect back to me, you're safe. And just that, it's like, oh, I'm an adult now. I'm an adult. I'm not in the same environment, because again, trauma keeps us trapped in the same situation that we were in before. Even if a new situation is completely different, we will still have memories of what happened before and we'll feel like we're still back in that place. Because that's the way our brains work, right? And it's a process of recognizing that you're not there anymore. You're not there anymore and you're safe. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Yes, we're socialized to be like robots so the governments of the world can take advantage of us. Yes, yes, yes. We're brainwashed into this behavior, point blank period, so they can throw anything at us and we silently take it. Yeah. Bars, yes. Wow, okay. Gotta write some of this down. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's key. That's powerful. And that's true. That's true. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I can't stand it, SMH. I want to be who I am. I will be who I am. Yeah. And just that declaration, right? That affirmation to yourself, repeating that can start to move energy, right? If you repeat that to yourself, I will be who I am. It's like recognizing what we're in, but also realizing that we have agency at all times. At all times. Mm-hmm. I agree, Leslyn. So many poignant words in this chat today. Yes, yes. And I love that we can learn from each other as we're sharing what we've been through, processing in real time, just sharing this so we can learn, right? Community learning, yeah. I will be who I am. Mic drop. Mic drop. Yes. Hope and Victory says, why is it that as an adult, we also stay in abusive situations, work environments, relationships? So this is one of the things that I have been sitting with and reflecting on. And I'll say, like, for me, and it can be for different reasons, right? But for me, it's because the work environment I was in very closely mirrored a lot of the situations that I was in childhood. And so I felt like I couldn't leave. I went right back into like 5-year-old me, right? Being in an environment where I couldn't leave, where I just had to deal, suffer through, survive, right? Silence my voice, all of these like protective measures that we take on, trauma responses, really, to just try to get through day to day, because that's what we had to do in childhood. Not realizing that now I am in my late 20s, right? I'm not 5 years old anymore. And so I can leave this environment, right? It's at will employment. I don't have to show up the next day, and that means I'm done working that job. I don't even have to submit 2-week resignation letter. So it's really understanding, why did I feel like I couldn't leave? Because it was rooted in those very traumatic experiences, and I was right back there at 5 years old. And so healing for me from a toxic job has looked like revisiting those early wounds, those early childhood wounds that told me that I had to just stay and contort myself, right? And silence my voice, and all these things that we do in toxic work environments that a lot of the times are rooted in what we experience very early on. Yeah. Breaking the chains, absolutely. Yeah. Hi, welcome. Healing, yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, maybe there be healing for us all. I agree. Yeah. Yeah. Rabia says, I look back at my old Instagram and realize the stages I've gone through trying to recover from trauma. One of the reasons I started over. Yep. Yep. And just revisiting like past photos. I know for me, one of my mentees in my former job sent me an old photo. And I was just reflecting on that. I was like, wow, that was a different person, right? And realizing how far I've come, right? The progress that has been made, and really sitting with that and realizing you're not there anymore. As you begin to heal, it can feel like some days when you're healing, like every day is the same. You don't make any progress until you look back and you realize, oh my gosh, I'm not the same person I was a year ago, 6 months ago, because I have dedicated myself to slowly healing over time and realizing that it's not a fast process. It's a messy process, it's a slow process, it's a hard one, like hard process, like can take you to the depths of things that you did not want to ever think about again. But you have to recognize where those wounds were made. And again, that's where something like therapy can come into play. If you're having difficulty doing that yourself, because that can be heavy. So having someone to sit with you to work through those memories and bring them to your conscious awareness so that you can realize this is why I'm responding to this situation in adulthood, because it's rooted in something I experienced very early on. Yeah. Yep. Lesson says, I have an idea about this question, and I think, to be honest, I want to sit and make a video about my opinions. And I might. It is troubling to say the least. Yeah. We would love to see that video. Yes. Yep. Yeah. Dude, even the apartment complexes want 60 days notice so they can fill the space by the time you leave. I don't owe you 60 days. Yeah. That's such a good point because, yeah, I've had to sit with that, right? It's at will employment in the US. But because of things like enslavement, right, has told us that our job is our identity. The work that we do is our identity. If we like steer away from that, it's like it's death. It's to that point of socialization. And so that's also a reason why we feel like we have to stay in these environments. Because what would it mean if we leave? If we've invested so much of our identity into this role and this title and this job that we do, right? What would it mean when we leave, when we walk away? Because of the socialization around the meaning of work in the US especially, right? Yeah, that's something I'm gonna sit with. Yeah, lesson, come on. At will employment means you can get rid of me anytime. Why can't I get rid of you at any time? That's it. Yep. That is it. Be prepared to have some folks in your life walk away from you when you heal. Latrice, yes. Some relationships end when trauma is addressed. Can we talk about it though? The things that the healing cost you, right? That's real. The things that you lose when you bloom and begin to like shed some of the old leaves that you've been hanging on to. What do you lose along the way, right? Those relationships that did not really serve you, that were not reciprocal, that were reliant on you silencing yourself, putting yourself down, right? Those things start to naturally fall off the more that you come into your power and begin to heal intentionally. So that's real. That's a whole topic too. What do you lose when you heal? And that's why it can be difficult too, right? Because your life may change. Your life may change in ways that you did not expect. When you begin to intentionally put yourself first, that means like things that you've been pushing down will come up to the surface. And that may mean things have to change, relationships have to end, right? With that. That's real. Yeah. It's bittersweet when they walk away. Yeah. Who are we in these societies without good jobs, hope, and victory? Yeah. And what constitutes a good job? Because a lot of times it's just salary. That's the only thing that we're told. Salary and benefits. Well, how are they treating you? How are they treating you? Yep. My being is so accustomed to the identity, fear of breaking away. Yeah. Ooh, that's deep. And thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Fear of breaking away. Yeah. Because again, we are taught from such a young age to tie our identities to the things that we produce, the things that we do for other people, the services that we offer. How is our identity like so deeply connected to that and intertwined? So when you need to leave, right, you feel everything inside you saying, like, okay, it's time to go. I'm not being treated well in this environment because your identity has been like intermingled with that, what you do, the tasks that you do at your job. And the more that I've been healing, the more I've been trying to just sit with a job is simply tasks that you complete. That's it. Having to step away from like, this is my whole life. This is my identity. This defines me. No, really unlearning that socialization because that's so real. And we've seen the effects of when you tie your identity to what you do, right? And the job becomes toxic, things go awry. Some of us feel like we can't even like live anymore because it's been so deeply like intertwined. So realizing that those are always two separate things. Who you came here as on earth, you're you, regardless of what environment you're in, who you're associated with, right? Where you live, you're you. You have inherent qualities and gifts that you came here with. No environment that you enter or leave can ever affect that, can ever change that. These are external earthly factors, right? Just sitting with that. Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Yes. We're still who we are. For instance, I left a data analyst job and I'm still Kagayaku. Yes. Oh, I'm still a mathematician. I'm still a coder. They can't take that from me. That's huge. Yeah, that's something I've been sitting with too. Like they can't take your experience. Your experience is yours. What you've been through, the jobs that you've had, the roles that you've had, these are yours. The skills that you have, that you came here with, right? Even going back to like childhood healing. We come here with these parts of ourselves. No one can deem us worthy. We come here worthy, but yet we're socialized to feel like we're not worthy slowly over time. And the education system has a lot to do with that because we're looking to other people to validate who we are, our worth, what we contribute through things like grades, right? These arbitrary letters that are assigned to us to put us in competition with each other from such a young age. The trauma that creates, and really getting back to know I was worthy the entire time simply because I'm on earth, right? I don't look at a tree and say the tree is not worthy. The tree needs to grow a few more leaves before like I can deem it worthy of being here. Like I don't do that. We don't do that, right? So why do we do that to ourselves? Yeah. Yes, Latrice, life is priceless. Life is priceless. Capitalism got us messed up. Okay. Hey, Mimi. Good to see you. Yeah. Leslie says, I read a book called The Things They Carried, and it spoke about men in war and all the things they carried physically and mentally. Thank you for sharing. I think I've heard of that book before. The Things They Carried. Yeah. And that's huge, right? Even in getting back to the topic of the discussion, what are we carrying? What are we carrying from all the traumatic experiences that we've been through? The oppressive institutions and environments that we've been in from such an early age? What are we carrying? What messages did we receive about ourselves? Then now we're still operating in that same pattern. And how is that affecting the environments that we're in now? And we feel like we have to stay and we feel like we have to contort ourselves, take off pieces of ourselves because that's what we've been told. That's how we've been socialized. How can we begin to unlearn that? Yeah, absolutely. Sharon, hey Sharon, Sharon Dukes, yes, it's difficult when you've gone to the original wound through therapy, etc., and the survival instinct kicks, the old coping, the false self. I'm dealing with not knowing myself, being the wound. Who am I? Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. That's huge. When you've gone to the original wound through therapy. Yeah. And the old coping with false self. Not knowing myself, being the wound. Who am I? Yeah. And that can be a difficult process too. Right. And shout out to Glamzini. Again, I'll link her channel here. She has a fantastic free workbook on who am I. It's called Who Am I? Really coming back into your identity, because a lot of us don't even know who we are. And I have had to sit with that myself, healing from a toxic job. I was just trying to go after what I thought people wanted me to be in. I didn't really know who I was because I didn't have, no one told me to really sit with myself in that way. Really understand who am I so that I can know who I am when I am entering these spaces, the things that I like to do, right? All these things. We're not taught, a lot of us are not taught to do that. Yes. This is Glamazini's YouTube channel. And yes, other inspiration, before I forget, yes, Alicia Renese, the artist, yes. Her session at the Job Liberation Virtual Summit, which I co-hosted with Dr. Kamani a couple months ago, on really understanding who you were as a child, right? And the work that she does on her channel to really remind us all, like, who we were as children was perfect, was whole, right? Who we came here as, the things that we like to do, the interests that we had. That is who we are. All of these other identities that we have, we just are just layers that we've taken on to protect ourselves in this very harsh society and world that, again, tries to make us into robots. Tries to tell us that we have to fit in when we were not, like, we were put here with unique gifts. Why would we ever, if we were put here with unique gifts, why would we need to fit in? You know what I'm saying? Like, that doesn't really comport. It doesn't comport. And it's only through understanding how the society functions, right? We're taught to fit in so that we can fit into these molds and keep the systems functioning as they currently do. If we were all our unique selves, they would crumble. But that's who we're put here to be. Yeah. Yeah. Danny. Hey, Danny. Yes, thank you so much for holding space for this conversation. You're welcome. You're welcome. Good to see you here. Yes, Glamazini is amazing. Yes. Yes. Who is that you mentioned before? It might have been Glamazini. My other inspirations, let me see. Angela Kanu, I will link her channel as well. Glamazini, Coach Yolanda, and Alicia Renese. These are my inspirations for this discussion tonight on knowing your origin story, right? Where do you come from? What environment did you enter into? What experiences did you have along the way in your most formative years that are now really impacting how you're showing up in adulthood, the relationships that you're in, right? The things that you think that you like, the values that you have even. How are these things showing up? Getting back to the blocks, the building blocks of your life. So I'll link everyone's channel. Yeah. Scrolling through the comments. Thank y'all so much. Yeah, Sharon says, beyond the wound, who I am, relearning, allowing that true self to emerge. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, it's just tasks for real. That's it, and that's all. Oh my gosh, sitting with that. Really trying to understand how I was socialized to view work, jobs, is completely wrong. And that's another thing with healing that I was thinking about doing a video on. Realizing that everything that you learned is wrong. That's a lot. That's a lot to sit with. Things that you thought were true are not. Right? They're actually playing into a larger system at play that wants you to be oppressed, that wants you to be silent, that wants you to stay in your place. That can be a huge grieving process, to understand the things that you thought were true, the values that you had, like what were those really based on? And it really is like having to come into a whole new identity because you're shedding these parts of yourself that were never really you and trying to learn again, who am I? And that really takes going back to who you were when you got here as a child, right? And one of the ways, like I said, they try to cut us off at 18, that we're just these brand new people that are just meant to be in the workforce. Because really, that's the gist of it. Without things that we've experienced, without people who have said things to us, messages that we've internalized, adverse childhood experiences, which I will be hosting a workshop on Sunday. And I'll get into the list of those. But yeah, these are essentially very traumatic events that we experienced in childhood that can impact our health, like our physical health, our mental health in adulthood. And a lot of us have gone through these things and may not even realize that these were adverse childhood experiences. Right? So I will link this in the chat. I think I just closed my notebook. Yes, I did. Let me open that back up. But yes, thank y'all so much for sharing your experiences in the chat. Truly, truly appreciate it. Yes. So some adverse childhood experiences, right? And these, again, these are potentially traumatic events that occur between 0 and 17 or 1 and 17. So these, again, these are your earliest years. In the workshop that I hosted with Angela, we talked about like from 0 to 3, that's really when attachment wounds start to occur. If you did not attach to your caregivers in a way that was secure, you may have an insecure attachment style that is still showing up in your life, in adulthood. And these can last throughout your entire life, right? And you can only heal from it by becoming aware of it and then taking action steps to understand how you got it and then how you're going to move through the world differently. It's not something that you can ever like truly 100% heal from, because that was a wound that was made from 0 to 3, right? When you first got here. And so healing is really just being aware of the wounds that you have and how you may need to protect yourself, move differently in the world, understanding, taking the blame off yourself. That's huge. We have internalized shame from a lot of the stuff that we have experienced. And healing is really taking that off and actually placing the blame on who it needs to be placed on, not us. You actually survived this experience, and that deserves to be celebrated. So it's reframing that. No, it's not shameful. It's actually something to celebrate that I made it through this and I'm still here. Just flipping that on its head. Yeah. Scrolling through the comments. I think I left off on my thought on average childhood experiences, but yes, these can include abuse, neglect, violence, or aspects of a child's environment that can make them feel unsafe or unstable. These have long-lasting effects, ACEs, average childhood experiences, on a person's mental and physical health, and can increase the risk of developing chronic health problems like mental illness and substance abuse as adults. Right? So this is when your nervous system is already exposed to high levels of stress before you've even been able to process what's happening to you. Because our brains in these stages are not able to understand, comprehend fully what's going on. So a lot of us will internalize what's happening to us, because that's what children do, right? We see something that's traumatizing. We think, what did I do? Because that's how our brains work at that age. And so it's really unlearning that and realizing you didn't do anything, right? Taking that blame off of yourself. So some of these things can include abuse, emotional and physical neglect, living with a family member with mental health or substance use disorders, witnessing domestic violence, sudden separation from a loved one, poverty, racism and discrimination, and violence in the community. So these are adverse childhood experiences. And again, I'll be hosting a workshop on healing from these things and really understanding how they're impacting us in adulthood the impacts that they had on us at such a young age when we did not have the words, we didn't have the language, our brains were not at a stage to understand what was happening to us, right? And the impacts, because we still have those memories, the memories don't go anywhere. How are those still showing up unconsciously in adulthood? Because that's very real. That's very real. Those wounds, they're not always in our conscious awareness. And because, again, we don't have the time, a lot of the times we don't have the space, and you can carve out time and space, which is one of the things you have to do in this society that does not afford us the time and space to sit with what happened to us. We actually have to carve out space for ourselves and be like, even if it's 5 minutes journaling, I'm going to sit here and just kind of like brainstorm about some of the things that I experienced growing up, right? The bullying, what people said to me, what I'm now taking on in adulthood that does not serve me. Just letting your mind be free for like 5 minutes, if that's all you have. Right? But as a practice over time, if you do 5 minutes every day, that's how you build up the momentum to continue your healing process and revisiting those difficult areas that are showing up. They're impacting you. Yes, yes, yes. Thank y'all so much for your comments. Yeah. And still we rise, okay? Rooting for us, sis. Yes, yes. Absolutely. And still we rise. And still we rise. That's so funny. I had that poem on my wall growing up. Look at the universe. Look at the universe. Yes. Hope and Victory says, I often repeat to myself, I didn't do anything wrong. That's huge in healing, right? The affirmation. And I do have a book of affirmations too, which I think is in the description section. But yes, Cocoon, that I wrote to myself as I was coming out of a toxic work experience. These are notes that I wrote to myself to begin the healing process. So what are your affirmations to yourself? Like Hope and Victory says, right? I didn't do anything wrong. Repeating these to yourself daily, if you have to, right? Hourly, whatever works for you. Just telling yourself that you're not to blame for what happened to you. I mean, it's as simple as that. You are not to blame. You are not to blame. You entered a harsh world, right? An evil world sometimes, where you encounter traumatic events, experiences, and you survived. You survived. And that is trauma informed care. How can we have that for ourselves? It's not what's wrong with me, it's what happened to me. Yeah. Yeah. Let me link everybody's channel here. Actually, I think I have everyone's channel that I am inspired by this conversation in the description section. But yes, again, Angela Kanu, Coach Yolanda, Alicia Renice, and Glam Mazzini inspired this conversation today. In all of their channels, I would, if you are in the process of healing from childhood trauma, please subscribe to all of their channels. They all come in at it at a different angle, right? But like put together, it's like, whoo, healing, incredibly healing. And yeah, just recognizing your birth story, as Coach Yolanda helped me through. She was actually my coach as I was healing from actually exiting a toxic job. Understanding what you were born into. Was your actual birth story traumatic? So like your physical birth experience, was that traumatic? Because that can have an impact on how you're operating in the world. Just that, how you physically entered into the world. So it's really combing through all of these things that you experienced, you encountered throughout your life, and how it's those wounds are still continuing to impact you as an adult. Yeah. Yeah. Scrolling through the comments here. Yay. Yes. One way I hold space for my grief is to address, what do I really want? How can I show up for myself right now? Who has shown me kindness? Journal questions. Yes. What do I really want? How can I show up for myself right now? Who has shown me kindness? Thank you, Danny. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I've had to ask myself the question, like, in a similar token, like, what would self love look like in this moment? Right? When I'm rushing around, when I'm doing all these things, I'm like, hold up, pause. Because I have the ability to do that, right? You have the agency to pause in your life. If you feel yourself spiraling down like a chaos spiral, you have the agency to say, I'm not going down that. I'm actually going to pause and sit with, what would self love look like right now? How can I take care of myself in this moment? Does that mean I need to rest? Do I need to take a nap? Do I need to go on a walk? Do I need water? Do I need to eat? Right? A lot of times it's just like basic functions that we overlook again when we're in survival mode, as we are conditioned to be in the society. Constantly, like our nervous system. Ooh, that's another topic, nervous system healing. Our nervous system is on overdrive because we were never meant to live this way. Right? So it's taking the time that you have, pausing, and realizing that you can make a different decision in this moment. You have the agency to do that. Yeah. Queendom says, oh, how I love to go back and, ooh, yes, time and rescue the younger me from the traumas at school and jobs at a younger age with this knowledge. Queendom. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Me too. Yeah, that's one of the things I shared on my Substack blog too. And understanding childhood trauma and things that I went through, and realizing now I'm seeking justice for her. Now I'm actually like angry about what I experienced. And that's another part of healing, right? Allowing yourself to be angry. Because no, what you went through was actually like messed up. And you shouldn't have had to go through that. And you shouldn't have had to survive that. You should have been treated well. All the things that you deserve, you should have had. And so it's allowing yourself to access anger as well, which can be an emotion that some of us are scared of. I know that that's something I've had to work on. Like, it's okay for me to be angry. That's a human emotion. I can be angry about what I experienced because I should be. If anyone else went through this, I would be angry. So why am I not allowing myself to access that for myself? Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. Scrolling through. Yes. Yeah. Yes, facts, facts. They will keep trying, but trust me, they can never stop us. There are other options. That's one of the keys to freedom. Realizing that you always have options, right? You have options. And when you are deep in trauma, one of the things that I've been sitting with is trauma really like puts you in a mode where you're not able to see outside of what you're in. Right? It can feel like tunnel vision. Trauma can. The traumatic experience you're in. The more that you can say, I'm actually going to zoom out. This feels like it's the end of the world because I'm right here. What else am I missing if I allow my vision to get bigger? If I allow myself to zoom out and see the other options that I have that are available to me. Because you got to this place. So what makes you think you can't get to another place? Those things within you did not go anywhere. You're still you. And I think part of that is realizing that no one has ownership over the experiences that you have, the skills that you have. Those are yours, point blank, period. They don't go anywhere. They don't go anywhere. Yes, these affirmations. Thank y'all. Yes, I love and accept myself without conditions. Mm-hmm. That is huge. That is huge. Yeah. Because if you were in an environment growing up where love was conditional, where you had to do something for someone, right, in this certain way in order for them to show you love, it's like, how are you carrying that on for yourself in adulthood? Like, if I don't do this, right, then I'm not showing myself love, then I'm punishing myself. You can unlearn that. You can unlearn that and become your own parent, right? Reparenting yourself, showing yourself unconditional love. No matter what I do, if I fail, I don't think failure is a thing. I think you just gain information. But if I fail at this thing, if I don't do it the way I wanted to do it, I'm still going to love myself because I'm worthy. I was put here worthy. If I sit in the grass all day, this is what I've had to tell myself. If I sit in the grass all day and look at trees for the rest of my life, I will still be worthy. I'll still be worthy. So that's key. Yeah, unconditional love for self. Carol Collins says, relax, relax, you're not in trouble when I feel the tension and trauma in my body. Yep. Yep. That is a great affirmation. Repeating to yourself, right? I'm my own parent now. I'm not in trouble. I'm not in trouble. I feel, I sense, and this is part of like healing too, re-embodiment, coming back into the physical sensations that you're experiencing when you are triggered. When someone says you did something wrong, right? If you were in an environment that was highly critical, as a child, you can have like really deep physical responses to any type of criticism. So it's reminding yourself, I'm not in trouble. I'm an adult now. I'm feeling some areas of tension, like in these places that you feel them. So I'm bringing my awareness to that. I'm recognizing that, but I'm not going down the spiral of telling myself that I'm in trouble and I'm worthless. I'm not doing that. I'm actually going a different direction and telling myself that I'm human. I'm human and people make mistakes. And I still love myself unconditionally. That's never going to change, period. Yes. Absolutely. Ooh. Yeah. Carol says those childhood traumatic experiences groom us for abusive relationships. One stays in abusive marriage relationship, the familiar trauma, the willingness to stay in abuse. Yeah, I agree completely with that. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That's key. In being able to connect those dots between what you experience in childhood and the relationships that you are in adulthood. How are they mirroring each other? That can be pivotal information as you heal and come back into yourself. How are you recreating a pattern that you witnessed very early on that was not healthy? But that was the pattern that you were in, and that's the only frame of reference that you had as a child. So now you're recreating that cycle in adulthood. How can you come out of it? The first step is awareness that you're even repeating the same cycle that you were in. Right? And please don't overlook awareness, because that's huge to even get to that point. Because like I said, a lot of us are operating with wounds that we're not even aware of. We haven't gotten to that point. So the fact that you're aware, right, of these things, that deserves celebration, to sit with that. Like, thank you, self. I got to the level of awareness. So that means I'm on the first step of changing. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Latrice. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Yes. Oh, I love the agency to pause t-shirt idea. Oh, okay, y'all. Y'all know that I made a t-shirt out of the last suggestion I had for a t-shirt. So let me write this down. Agency to pause. Thank you for this. Intuitive Tammy, hey, welcome. Yeah, you are not wrong. That's a powerful affirmation. You're not wrong, especially those of us who have been socialized to question ourselves. People pleasers, where you at? Okay, those of us who have been taught to like deny what we know to be true, repeating to yourself, as intuitive Tammy says, like, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Like, even sitting with yourself, I know that I may be questioning what I'm feeling, what I'm experiencing, but I know that I'm not wrong. The power that that holds and the self-trust that that can help rebuild when you sit with that. I'm not wrong. Because I know what I feel. Right? And leaving yourself open to new information, of course, but if you're getting an intuitive feeling about a situation, a person, a place, a thing, really recognizing that to be real. That's something else I've had to sit with. As a recovering intuitive myself, realizing that my spirit does not lie to me. Mm-hmm. They don't want us to know who we are. That's so true. That's so true. Yeah, and that kind of like brings back up why they try to cut us off at 18 from everything that we experienced prior to that point. Because that's really who we are before we take on these extra layers. That's who we are, who we came here to be. Before we took on any of these things that we didn't consent to take on. But again, because we're socialized to be very robotic, very like on the conveyor belt, as Glamazini says, like just hop on the conveyor belt, meet this thing by this timeline and this by this timeline. And if you don't, then people are going to look down on you. Life is not like that. In actuality, outside of these systems, that's not why we came here, right? To get on a conveyor belt and be someone's robot. Yeah. These are such great questions, and I have been sitting here listening. I'm in all there is still to do to get to the bottom of it all. Yeah. It can be a lot. It can be a lot. Like I said, one of the parts of healing, realizing that a lot of the things that you've been taught, sometimes all of them are wrong. They're wrong. Because that can bring up a whole lot of stuff, right? Well, why did these people tell me these things if they're wrong? Well, were they also operating in being socialized under the same systems that you were? And this is the only messaging that they had to relay to you. That can be an entire grief process of realizing that the things you learned were not intended to serve you. They were actually intended to keep you oppressed, enchained. Yeah. Leslie says, dude, if I went back in time, I would change the world as I know it because I would shift everyone's purview. Mm-hmm. Yep. Like the things that we would teach ourselves and like tell ourselves, which we still can do, right? Because we're just grown versions of our little selves. All we did was our bodies matured. That's something I've been sitting with too. Because I had cut off who I was as a child prior to 18, completely cut off everything, right? And realizing that I am the same person. I'm just in a more mature body. That's the only thing that happened. My brain didn't go anywhere. My memories didn't go anywhere. My experiences didn't go anywhere. And so I'm still operating in that same thing, that same pattern. If I'm not aware of it, I will still be continuing those same patterns. The survival mechanisms that I used, that I took on in environments where I could not leave at that point. But now as an adult, I can. I do have the agency to do that. Yeah. I'm not designed to fit in. No. That's powerful. Yeah, none of us are. Why are we all so different? Why are we all unique? If we're supposed to fit in, why are we all unique? Right? Yeah. That doesn't make sense. It does not make sense. Yeah. Scrolling down, y'all. Sorry, I'm behind on comments. Ooh, Danny. Okay. Releasing hypervigilance. One deep breath at a time. Ooh, hypervigilance. This is me, right? So having grown up in very traumatic environments, especially where I stuck out a lot, I am extremely hypervigilant everywhere that I am, right? Anytime someone I think someone stares at me, my nervous system goes. Going back right into the place where I was like 8, 9 years old, 10 years old in these environments, right? And realizing that was unsafe to stick out. And so my nervous system now becomes hypervigilant in environments that mirror what I experienced early on. And I think one of the keys to healing has been recognizing when I am becoming hypervigilant. Through recognizing your body's symptoms, what starts to happen? Shortness of breath, right? Feeling my stomach tighten, my chest tighten. A lot of times, our bodies go into protective mode when we think about even physical trauma, if something happened to us, we go inward, right? That is our natural response to protect ourselves. And that can feel the same way when you are in situations that pose danger emotionally, mentally. You'll feel those same body responses. Why am I shrinking? I'm holding my breath, my palms are sweating. You're having a trauma response to something in your environment that's triggering a past memory that you had likely in childhood, right? So just, again, becoming aware of that, recognizing that this is your body responding. It's picking up on a past memory. Our bodies can do things that we are not even consciously aware of, which is amazing, right? Even breathing, right? That's if you're in your parasympathetic nervous system, everything functions where you are not aware of it, right? And it only comes to the point where when you're in your trauma response, when you're in your sympathetic nervous system, then you start becoming aware of these physical things, these overdrives that your body is going into because you're operating in a pattern that was established early on where something very traumatic happened to you. And that's where self-compassion, grace, understanding that you survived something traumatic and now your body is trying to process that still, right? It's trying to protect you by taking on the same protective measures that you had to have back then. It's doing that again, but you're in a different situation. You're in a different environment. And so that's where conscious awareness comes into play. And reminding yourself, you're not there anymore. You're not there anymore. And you can take a different path and react a different way, in a way that serves you. Yeah. Hey, Javana. Yeah, I think it's good to recognize the duality of loving someone but not liking them. Mm-hmm. Yes. 100%. Yep. Duality. Duality, I think, is key to healing too, right? Hold space for multiple truths. Realize that multiple things can be true at the same time. In Western society, we are taught binary thinking. It's either this or this. Nothing can be true in between. That's not true. That's not how life works, right? Multiple things are true. Multiple things can be true. So allowing yourself to go to that place, to stretch, I think Alicia says this, stretch your imagination. Allowing yourself to go there. No, this is true, and this is also true, and that's true too, and this is true. All of them are true. Kind of releasing rigidity, embracing flexibility to heal. Even with body movement, right? Rejecting rigidity when you feel your body kind of tense, releasing that, right? Even in physical movement, embracing flexibility to heal. Allow yourself to process energy by inviting in movement, right? In your thoughts, in your body, in the way that you move through the world. A lot of us are taught things have to be very strict, rigid, set all the time. And we know that's not how life is. But that's how we are socialized to believe that life should operate on this made up timetable, right? And time is also a construct. Time, childhood, adulthood, all of these are constructs that are made up. They don't actually exist in reality. And so by healing, bringing your awareness to that, you can begin to reclaim those parts of yourself. Like I said, the only thing that happens when we grow up is our body matures. Your thoughts, your memories, your personality, they don't go anywhere. You're still the same person at a more mature level. But trying to cut yourself off at 18 really leaves your entire identity. I think that's why a lot of us may not know who we are too, because we've cut ourselves off from who we were when we came here, which is like the true essence of ourselves before we started to become socialized in these oppressive systems that told us who we had to be. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, thank y'all so much. Yeah. Thank y'all. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Diana says, hey, yeah, that's such a word. If a friend went through what I went through as a child, I would be so mad for them. That part. Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. So if that helps, right? Depersonalizing, writing out what you went through as a child, but taking yourself out of it, kind of taking a third person view. How would you react if someone told you what you went through in childhood? How would you react if someone told you they went through that? You'd be angry, right? Would you blame them? No, absolutely not. So why are we taking on blame for what we experienced, what we encountered, what we survived? That can be crucial to healing too. Yeah. Realizing that. What would you do if a friend told you that? And treating yourself the same way because you're your own friend. Right? We should be. We should be our own friend throughout this life experience. Again, I think like intuitive Tammy said, right? Yeah. Unconditional love for self. Yes. Yeah, Eva Dotson. Hey, yes, good to see you. Accepting a false narrative as my personal identity is something I did as a child to survive. I was never bad. I was always more than enough. That's huge. That's huge. Yep. And the key, like the thing that you can recognize, right? That's something that you did to survive. That's huge because that immediately disintegrates any blame that you may have had, right? Or any of us may have had. When you take that off, no, this is actually something I did to survive. And I succeeded because I'm here. You succeeded at that. You survived that. Whatever you had to do to get through that harsh, traumatic environment experience, you did it. You survived, you excelled, and now you have the power to heal from that, right? And realize that you're not in that anymore. And really come back to who you were meant to be the entire time before you experienced that. I think that's huge. Yep. Yeah. Okay. Yes. I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. Information gathering. And again, healing from childhood trauma can look like failing, right? It can look like I didn't do this right. I'm not able to do this, put this effort in. This is heavy work. This is really deeply heavy work, really emotionally draining. So whatever you can do, you're able to do. Some days you're not able to. That's part of healing as well. right? Anything deserves to be celebrated. There is no failure. There's just information gathering. I think Coach Yolanda said that as well. There is no failure. There is no failure. You're constantly gathering more information as you go throughout this life experience on what works, what doesn't work. And every day that you live, you're able to apply the lessons that you learned in the past to the new day. Mm-hmm. Hope and Victory says some parents still tell their adult children that they are worthless because they are living their dreams. Yeah. Yeah. And that's key too, right? If you are around people who are still telling you these things, right? Maybe you're not in that environment, but you're still around the people who said these messages to you. May you need to put up a boundary to protect yourself from these harmful messages as you're on your healing journey, right? And recognizing that your wellness, your mental health, your full well-being should come first, right? And having that radical acceptance that maybe this person will not change. Maybe they will continue trying to bring me down, right? But how can I protect myself? Tapping into my agency every time and realizing that I can put up something to protect myself as I'm healing from this person. They may need to be on their own healing journey, but if they're siphoning your energy, putting towards processing what happened to you, you may need to put up a boundary between that person. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Latrice, change only happens when you are willing to do it. Yeah. And that can be a difficult process, right? Getting to that point where you're like, okay, I'm ready to change. But again, having that awareness of what's happening, of how you're responding, of the wounds that you may have, that is a huge step that should not be overlooked on the cycle of change. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for asking. How are you, love? Great to see you live. I love that you got this so young. Oh, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for asking. I appreciate that. I'm good. Yeah. Preach, I'm realizing failure isn't real at my big age. Yeah, failure isn't real. No, something I've had to sit with, right? Constantly information gathering. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The tree says also boundaries for those people who we don't want to cut off. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because there are people you don't want to cut off completely, right? But you realize that I need to have you over there. You can't be like in my everyday orbit. And that's okay too. That's okay too. Yeah. Yeah. Eva says, I see this topic as another way I learned to code switch as a child. It was safer to agree and act accordingly to avoid punishment. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Yep. And I never heard that term used that way. Like, thank you. Code switch as a child, right? Because we know that's, again, like children know the truth. We know the truth. And yet we adopt these ways of being in the world to survive very harsh environments. Even though a part of us knows what's real, we have to, like you said, agree and act accordingly to avoid punishment. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times we will downplay children's ability to understand the environments that they're in and the things that they have to do to survive. It's like the fact that your brain can do that from such a young age, even if you're not able to fully process and understand what's going on, You know that you have to act a certain way to survive. And that's amazing that our brains are able to do that. And the process of healing is just coming out of that mode that our brains had to go in to survive and come out of survival mode. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, breathwork coach, Giovanna. Yes, Giovanna May Race. Yes, it's so important to pay attention to your breath and what your body is telling you. The first step to recognize what's happening and to confirm physical safety. Yeah. Yeah. In response to this question, yeah, what do you do when your body goes to protective mode? I agree with that, Giovanna. Yeah. Breath work. Breath work is key, which Giovanna talks about on her channel. Please subscribe. But yeah, recognizing that, I know that for me, one of the first things that happens is I hold my breath. Again, this is your body's inherent instinct when you are in danger, right? You tense up, you like go into a ball. If you ever see like animals in danger, right? It's the same thing. We do the same thing. And recognizing that you can invite breath back in. So although your body is reacting as it is to protect yourself, you can consciously reactivate your breath and realizing that you have the agency to do that. Right? So I recognize that I'm holding my breath. What does that mean? I need to take a few deep breaths. Slow down, maybe, right? Take rest. It's really like having a game plan, even if you have to write this out. What am I going to do when I feel my body go into protective mode? What are like 3 steps that I can take to prioritize myself? So you have a game plan going in, so you're not caught off guard when you know that your body may go into protective mode when you're in this environment, when you're around these people. Now you have a game plan and a way to prioritize your wellness, your sense of self. So all of these things, yeah. Mm-hmm. The word failure feels permanent, but it's not. LOL, I failed 3 classes, LOL, but I still achieved what I set out to do in the end. Exactly. Exactly. And going back to grades, what are grades? Grades are a construct, right? For another person to determine if we are, I want to say worthy, to judge us in comparison against each other. So who's at the top, like this constant like hierarchy, that artificial hierarchy that we're placed in from such a young age, and it does a number on our sense of self. Because now I'm being graded. I have unique qualities and gifts, yet I'm being graded against these other people who also have unique qualities and gifts. As if we are, again, robots. And we're all supposed to be doing the same thing at the same level. I have a lot to say about grades. I don't like grades. I don't like grades. That's just me. That's just me. Yeah. Leslie. Because your body remembers what our minds tried to hide from us to protect us. Yes. Your body remembers. Yep. In the book, the body keeps the score. These deeply traumatic experiences that we had, again, a lot of us from early on. That's why it's important to know your origin story, all the things that happened to you. Slowly over time, right? You don't have to do this all at once, little by little, but it's important to know your story. Tell yourself your story, because your body is housing those traumatic memories and experiences, even if you're not consciously aware of them. And it is trying to protect us in environments where we see similar things, we have similar feelings that pop up. Our body recognizes that and goes into the same trauma response that we adopted early on, which is kind of amazing when you think about it. The fact that your body can sense that this is a familiar, unsafe environment. or that's how you're interpreting it. And I'm going to go into the same survival mode that I learned to do when I was 5 years old. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Okay, time isn't real. We only have the present. The future is a fantasy that might never occur, and the past is dead. Time is a construct. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank y'all. Thank y'all. I'm willing to change. It's a powerful affirmation. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm willing to change. Mm-hmm. Yep. Because I know that I may be going down the same road, activating the same response. I'm feeling my body do it, but I'm willing to change that. And what's the change point, right? Which direction are you going to go into? Even planning for this. If I know that I may react like this, how am I going to go in a different direction? And what will that direction look like? And how will it serve me? And how will it prioritize my mental health, my well-being? When I could not do that as a child, you're reparenting yourself as the parent that you needed, as a protector that you needed. How are you protecting yourself? Right? Removing yourself from harmful environments. Understanding that you have the power to change and the agency to do that. Yeah. I love that too. I love it too. Yes. 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 That's true. Some people aren't healthy for our daily lives. That is true. Yep. And that can be a difficult thing to sit with sometimes, right? But shout out to Coach Yolanda. I'm just shouting everybody out today. Shout out to Coach Yolanda for saying that. You have to tell yourself the truth. In order to heal, you have to tell yourself the truth. You don't have to share it with anyone else, but you have to be honest with yourself. And sometimes getting to that point is not easy. It takes time. It takes trial and error. It takes journaling, meditating, moving your body, right? Moving, processing that energy within you to come to the truth. But once you recognize it, you have to sit with it. You have to sit with the truth, the honesty that you're telling yourself in order to begin healing. Yes. Let me link Coach Yolanda's channel in the chat. And yes, y'all, I'm link everyone that I was inspired by. Yes, acceptance, dignity, and respect. Yeah. We drop our true selves for safety. That's a powerful statement right there. It is, and it's true. We do drop our true selves for safety. We do. And so the question is, how do we reconnect with our true selves? How do we pick back those pieces that we took off to survive an unsafe environment? How do we now put those pieces back onto ourselves? Because those are the magic. Those are the magic. Those are the things that we love to do. Those are our gifts. That is our ability to speak up for ourselves. Things that we had to take off in environments that were harsh, that were traumatic. How can we go back and pick those parts of ourselves up and integrate them with who we are now? That is healing. That is healing. Yeah. So yes, y'all, I'm linking the lovely women who I was inspired by for this conversation. Again, Coach Yolanda Glamazzini, Alicia Renice, and Angela Kanu, who have been doing really important work, crucial work on healing our childhood selves, on telling ourselves our stories, life story work, combing back through what we went through, what we experienced on the road to get to today. My Wi-Fi went out, y'all, but that is a tool of oppression. Because again, as we've shared, as y'all have shared in the chat tonight, that is our true selves. And so who does it benefit when we cut ourselves off at 18? This arbitrary number. And we forget everything that we experienced. We suppress everything that we enjoy doing. We don't do those things anymore. Life doesn't feel as, right, like enjoyable when you're not leaning into the gifts that you were put here with. And who does that benefit? It doesn't benefit you. Certainly not when you're cutting your gifts off. Yep. Yes, so Coach Yolanda, Alicia Renese, Angela Kanu, and Glamazzini. And yes, if you are interested in learning more about your identity, coming back into who you are, Glamazzini Roshni has an incredible free guide. I think it's called Who Am I? To help you come back into your identity on her. I think it's linked on her channel or in the description section of her videos. But yeah, hey Mara, good to see you. Good to see you. Yeah, Leslie says I read too much to let them mess with me. Okay. Reading has been huge to healing. As a proud nerd, right, an avid reader all throughout my life, going back to books as the rooting place has been huge. Yeah, when they try to mess with you, try to make you into someone else, coming back to who you were the entire time is key to healing. It's key to healing. And understanding that you survived extremely harsh, inhospitable, inhuman environments. And that deserves to be celebrated because you're here. You succeeded. You did what was necessary, although you shouldn't have had to do it, but you did what was necessary to survive. Right? And absolutely no shame for what you experienced. The blame is placed on the people, the places, the environments who caused you this harm. And you do not have to internalize it. You don't have to internalize that. Yes, I don't like grades. I don't. I really detest them, right? Because what's the purpose? It puts us into competition with each other. Some of us are good at some things, some of us are not. So why are we being graded on the same criteria? I never got that. That never made sense to me. So I'm glad I'm not the only one. Yeah. Oh, peace to you as well. Peace to you as well. Yeah. Yeah. Check my notes, make sure I didn't miss anything, y'all. Yeah, so 61% of adults, and I link these articles in the description section that I'm pulling from, had at least one adverse childhood experience. And 16% had 4 or more types of adverse childhood experiences, right? And yeah, how have these impacted us in adulthood? Again, abuse, emotional and physical neglect, living with a family member with mental health or substance use disorders, witnessing domestic violence, sudden separation from a loved one, poverty, racism and discrimination, violence in the community. These are the adverse childhood experiences that are just laid out, right? But they can include other traumatic events, accidents, crimes, anything that frightened you or overwhelmed you and made you unable to cope with what happened to you. That is a traumatic event. Too much, too fast, too soon. That is trauma. And when we take into account like systemic discrimination, intersectional oppression that Black women face, right? Black girls face from such a young age. And we know that the adultification of Black girls is very real. And so if we're encountering this from 0 to 17, how is this impacting our mental, our physical, our spiritual, emotional health in adulthood? Because these experiences don't go anywhere. As someone mentioned, your body holds on to memories, even if you're not consciously aware of them. Your body is still operating in the same pattern that it did when you were in this traumatic environment. And so bringing your awareness to that, to the impacts, to ways that you can begin healing and processing what you experienced is key. And again, I will be hosting Healing from the Impacts of Adverse Childhood Experiences this Sunday. If you do want to register, there is the link. I'll also link it in the chat here. But yeah, y'all. I think that is it. I do want to ask how y'all are doing. If you like to share, no pressure. But I know a lot of things are happening in the world. So just want to ask how y'all are doing as well. Oh, thank you, Danny. Check out Marissa's community as well for women entrepreneurs. I appreciate you. Thank you. Hey, Maya. Good to see you. Good to see you. Oh, wow, Leslyn. I just finished my master's and the entire program was pass or not, no grades. Do you know when I was in my my master's program for social work, it was during the pandemic when it first started, when I graduated in early mid 2020, and they went to a pass or fail grade system. And it alleviated so much pressure from us, right? Because now I didn't have to strive to get an A and like be better than everyone else in my class. Now I could just kind of like ingest the information and it took the pressure off. It felt so good to have a pass or fail system, right? And even like fail, what does that mean? But we getting there. But I think that's a lot of progress going from letter grades and all that to just, did you learn the information? Were you present? Were you here? You pass. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Book recommendation, Soothe Your Nerves. Oh, I dropped my pen. Let me write it down. By Dr. Angela Neal Barnett. Thank you, Danny. Yes. Soothe Your Nerves. Yes, we really do. Yeah, the adultification and the systemic oppression is super creepy. Yeah. Yeah, combining those two, right? Understanding that Black girls are often perceived as adults from such a young age in the US education system, in communities, in family systems. And how does that impact development? While systemic oppression is also happening. Not only are you being adultified, but you are also living in systems of oppression that are trying to extract your power at every turn, tell you to silence your voice, but you're also being treated like an adult at the same time. That's confusing. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yay. Yay. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. It's been a lot going on. Um, and so yeah, I resonate with that too. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. This conversation has been so soothing for me. I've been moving through grief, and being in this community today has lifted my spirits. Thank you, everyone, for showing up authentically. You're welcome. That warms my heart. You're so welcome. You're so welcome. And yeah, me too. Me too. I have also been moving through grief, processing a huge loss that I had before I went on this journey, right? In coming out of survival mode intentionally. That's one of the things about healing. The memories that you've been suppressing in survival mode will pop back up to the surface. And it's like, I thought I dealt with this. But now that you're out of survival mode and allowing yourself to breathe and understand what you experienced, those memories can come to the surface, and it's not always easy. And one of those emotions has been grief for me as well. Um, so I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah. Yeah. Y'all are a joy. Y'all are a joy to be around. Yes. Yes, it's better. No one is going to ask. Oh, no. Listen, not your GPA. So I do not see the point. Oh, GPA. Mm. And can we talk about this another topic? We've only almost been live for 2 hours, but the GPA requirements and how they restrict certain people from accessing things like internships, graduate school, right? It doesn't give any space for what you experience during your undergraduate education. You just have to have a GPA above 3.0, 3.5 to even get into this thing that you want to be in. You don't even know what I went through. How can a number tell you about my ability to learn, to intake information? But no, you're just looking at this number to deem if I'm worthy of being in this program, this job. That's another live grades. Whoo, grades. Yeah. We will not. We will not. Not at all. Hi, good to see you. Good to see you. Yes. Hearts. Hearts. Carol says this conversation brings healing at so many levels. I was born into the apartheid regime in South Africa. So when your discrimination is legislation, woo, deep wounds need healing. Carol, thank you. Yeah. When your discrimination is legislation. Yeah. I I can only imagine that, and I know having studied right the Jim Crow era in the Deep South as a Black Studies major, that almost sent me spiraling down really really deeply sad, depressive feelings. Reading, like you said, how discrimination was codified and literally determined people's life trajectories. So I cannot imagine that. And I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah. Yeah. Leslin says, indeed it does. Marissa does not know it, but she's my therapy. Leslin. Oh, I take that to heart. Thank you. Oh, I'm not gonna cry. Not gonna cry. But you know I'm sensitive. You know I'm sensitive. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. 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 Yeah, Leslie says, I had been reading about that system, and man, to think that was a blueprint used for what was happening here. I could only cry. I can't understand cruelty. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's so important to understand how different systems of oppression mirror each other globally. I think that's so key. And one of the ways that oppression works is try to convince us that our struggles are dissimilar and we're actually competing against each other. Right? Competition. Again, competition versus seeing the actors that are present in multiple spaces, in multiple systems globally, creating the same types of discrimination, putting it into law, determining people's life trajectories, cutting, like, not allowing people to live, denying people their humanity. And so the more connections, again, going back to the topic of the live, right? Connecting the dots. How does this mirror what's happening over here? In our similar people with similar goals, doing things, doing similar things, right, in different places around the world. The same thing with childhood trauma. One of the ways that oppression works is try to strip us of our memory and our ability to connect the dots between what's happening. Because then we can see things a lot more clearly, even with things like childhood trauma. How is what I'm experiencing now in adulthood mirroring what I experienced when I was 5? How is what I'm seeing here in this country, in this place, mirror what I'm seeing happening over here? And there's power in those connections. And so taking the time to sit with that and how this is impacting us globally, I think is huge. So I appreciate you sharing that, Carol. Mm-hmm. Ayabo Jackson, please correct me if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly. Yes, I'm a 7-year-old African-American woman from Alabama. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Yes, systems of oppression are real. What we are potentially facing come November make me deeply concerned for my 10 grandchildren. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a lot. It's been a lot in the world as we've seen different events taking place, right? And just understanding again the connections. And sometimes it can feel overwhelming and like you're not able to do anything. And that's something I've been sitting with. And so if you're experiencing that too, know that you're not alone. And I think one of the ways that I have been going through those feelings is recognizing how I can start to heal myself. Even if I'm not able to make the impact that I want to globally, even domestically, with the issues that I'm seeing happening, how can I turn inward and really begin to process what happened to me and heal myself? Because it can feel overwhelming. Yeah. Yeah. I can't imagine what you might have gone through. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I pray blessings and safety for you and your family. Yeah. Me too. Me too. Yeah. Pleasant says, agree, deeply troubling because I cannot see a way to true freedom with any of the current politicians. Whew. That part. That part. So, yes, y'all, if y'all, however y'all are feeling, I appreciate you being here. And know that if you're dealing with some deeper emotions at this time, know that you're not alone. A lot of us are trying to process what's happening to us, whether that be with something like childhood trauma, right, on a personal level, or systemically, the things that we see happening in the world. And just allowing yourself to sit with what you're feeling and carving out space and time for you to process that in whatever way that looks like for you, journaling, stretching, walking, sitting in the grass, right? Connecting with community like we have tonight. Anything that you can do to that makes you feel well and really tuning in to what makes you feel well. Because a lot of us are just living so rushed due to the constraints and demands of the society. The more that you can breathe, remind yourself that you're worthy, you always have been worthy. It's okay to feel things deeply. It's okay to sit with emotions, right? No matter what they are. And just giving yourself and time and space to process that, I think is key. So on that note, yeah. I encourage all of you young women to find elder women to connect with, gather their stories of how they got over. I appreciate that, and I'm writing that down. Yes. Yeah. Because that has been key, right? Also, I think someone mentioned, like, as an avid book reader, going back to the past and learning from people who have come before me and how they navigated the conditions that they were in, how they survived. So I think storytelling is very powerful, right? Even again, connecting it to what's your story, telling yourself your story, and then learning from the stories of other people, how they navigated, how they survived. These are our life stories, right? This is why we're here in this experience. I feel like to share with each other how we navigated, how we survived. And I know that's one of the goals of this channel, to provide a safe space for Black women to share our experiences so that we can collectively heal. And I completely agree with that. Yeah, gather their stories. Stories are powerful. Stories are powerful. Yeah. Well, on that note, I want to thank y'all so much for being here. On this, let's see, Tuesday night, I will be going live with Kamisha Jones of Sister Afia Wellness, Community Mental Wellness in Chicago. On Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, we'll be talking about Black women's mental health live on my channel. So I'm excited about that. But until then, let me read the last comments. Mimi says, this has been lovely. I'm not even supposed to be looking at the screen right now, but I had to say thank you. Oh, you're so welcome. And we appreciate you being here, Mimi. Thank you. Yeah. Leslie says, agreed. Yes, I would love to just sit and listen and gather. There's so much to learn. There's so much to learn. Mm-hmm. Yep. Hearts. Yes, thank y'all. Carol says, awareness of oppression and abuse causes isolation. Thank you. I feel heard and included. Thank you. God bless. You're welcome, and thank you for sharing your story. Thank you. That has been healing for a lot of us to hear what you have experienced as well. And I agree that isolation, yes, let me write that down. When you begin to heal and recognize what you're in, like you said, awareness of oppression and abuse, that can cause isolation. That has to be said, because you're not always surrounded by other people who recognize those same things, who are able to receive that truth. And so that can feel isolating. That can cause isolation. And so the more that we're able to connect with other people who are on similar journeys of not being afraid of the truth and leaning into it, I think that provides community and collective healing for us all, because we realize we're not alone in what we're thinking. And we don't have to be isolated, right? Even if it's in a virtual environment like this, if we're not physically surrounded by people who are able to affirm our experiences, we can find community in other ways. And this has been that source, one of those sources for me. So I appreciate y'all deeply. You're welcome, Hope and Victory. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. Yes, y'all. Yes. Like I said, catch me live Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern with Kamisha L. Jones LCSW of Sister Afia Wellness, Community Mental Wellness in Chicago. We'll be talking about Black women's mental health. Oh, yeah, yeah. That's real. That's real. I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah. Agreed. This was rather cathartic. Thank you, everyone, for this evening. Thank you, Marissa. You're welcome, Leslie. Thank you so much for being here, as always. And Sharon, you're so welcome. Thank you, and healing to everyone. Yes. Yes. But until Thursday, y'all, I hope y'all have a great night. Again, I'll be hosting a workshop, Healing from the Impacts of Adverse Childhood Experiences, on Sunday. The link to register is in the description section. But yeah, I appreciate y'all being here. Until next time, y'all. Bye.